Targeting trolling. www.thehindu.com. Targeting trolling. Yesterday, 10:03 p.m. Sri Lanka's legislative amendment to prohibit bottom trawling, a destructive fishing practice, is a welcome move despite its likely near-term consequence of deepening the fisheries conflict in the Palk Bay region. Bottom trawling in the island nation's territorial waters will now attract a possible 2-year prison term and a fine of 50,000 Sri Lankan rupees. The practice, which involves trawlers dragging weighted nets along the seafloor, is known to cause great depletion of fishery resources, and curbing it is in the interest of sustainable fishing. The initial reaction from Tamil Nadu has been one of concern and consternation. Political parties claim the amendment is draconian, and that it is targeted at the state's fishermen who regularly use hundreds of trawlers in Sri Lankan territorial waters. This criticism is way off the mark. In recent years, some fishermen in northern Sri Lanka have also adopted bottom trawling. If this practice continues to gain ground even among local fishermen, the long-term consequences on fishing resources in the contested Palk Bay region will be irremediable. The amendment is aimed at curbing local trawlers as well as deterring trawlers from Tamil Nadu. An appropriate response from Tamil Nadu would be to expedite the conversion of its trawlers to deep-sea fishing vessels, and not merely condemn Sri Lanka. Fishermen from both countries have been in talks for a long time to resolve the conflict. Sri Lankan fishermen want an immediate end to incursions by Indian trawlers, and those from Tamil Nadu insist on a 3-year phase-out period. The proposal to ban bottom trawling is 2 years old, but the amendment has come at a time when a joint working group set up by both countries last year is in place. Tamil Nadu fishermen are arrested from time to time by the Sri Lankan Navy, and their vessels seized. If more are arrested and slapped with 2-year jail terms after a summary trial, as the law now envisages, it may create new flashpoints. Ultimately, the solution lies in the transition from trawling to deep-sea fishing, for which a beginning has been made. The central and state governments plan to provide 500 deep-sea fishing boats with long lines and gill nets this year, as part of a plan to replace 2,000 trawlers in 3 years. However, the question is whether Sri Lanka can be expected to wait for this plan to be fully implemented before enforcing its bottom trawling ban. Even while bracing for an escalation as a result of protests from Tamil Nadu, both countries should ensure that the situation does not disrupt regular meetings of the JWG. Besides the fisheries conflict, they need to discuss marine conservation, thus giving equal importance to protecting livelihoods and sustainable fishing. Comments. Visit website. The Hamburg Tussle. www.thehindu.com. The Hamburg Tussle. Yesterday, 10:01 p.m. a gathering in Hamburg of the G20, a group of 20 developed and developing countries, last week was not unlike a large family event, some catching up, some patching up, and that unpredictable, rich uncle who needs to be managed and kept in good humor. The success of summits such as this should be judged with regard to the emerging global context, with the world's most powerful country, the United States, led by a president who wants to redefine the world order in narrow transactional terms, with economies changing due to digitization and automation, with the strength of a country's electoral process increasingly tied to its cybersecurity, with migration on an unprecedented scale, and with terrorism decentralized and dispersed. The G20 meetings in Germany reflected all this, either through the dynamics between leaders or in the wording of official statements that emerged from them. The summit also provided a much-needed opportunity for bilateral meetings, some of which went well beyond the ordinary renewal of commitments among countries. The meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin was their first after the election hacking scandal and Mr. Trump's inauguration, while the interaction between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping came amid the face-off between the Indian and Chinese armies in Doklam. Most remarkable was the fact that the G20 managed to pull together a joint communique at all, given Mr. Trump's recalcitrance on trade and the environment and the tension between interlocutors. It is reported that French President Emmanuel Macron was pivotal in bringing about unanimity by getting the US on board. Yet the final statement did not hide the fact that US policy currently runs against the global consensus, noting America's withdrawal from the Paris Climate Agreement but declaring that the other 19 countries recognize the pact is irreversible. Even so, a sentence about the US saying it would help countries access and use fossil fuels more cleanly and efficiently struck an odd note. In terms of trade, members committed to fight protectionism while recognizing legitimate trade defense instruments. While the G20 dynamics may have been strained, world leaders have clearly moved up the learning curve on how to handle Mr. Trump since his first international tour of West Asia and Europe in May, which saw rifts over the commitment to NATO, climate change and trade. The scale and violent nature of the protests in Hamburg too was notable, with tens of thousands showing up and several hundred police officers injured. These were yet another reminder that all is not well with the world, and that the undercurrents of discontent developing countries have long been familiar with have now flowed west. The G20 and other international groupings must work to mitigate their underlying causes through dialogue and responsive measures. Comments. Visit website.